Welcome to the Bold and Gold podcast. My name is Elijah Winfrey. Joining me on the show, as always, is Patience Beach, and we've got a lot to talk about. And you know what? It's always better to talk about Georgia Tech football after a victory. That's right. We are going to go right into our recap of last week's game. If you missed it, you missed a good one. And it was one where the offense kind of woke up in the second half of the game and put it away, 26-21. Victory over Pittsburgh. We're going to go to Patience first here. Patience, what was your impressions of the game from last week?
You know, I'm not going to lie. I was hoping we'd get a win, but I knew it'd be hard. You know, coming into it, Pittsburgh was 3-1. I mean, they were all talk like they were leading ACC in all these different categories. And, you know, they won the ACC championship last year, so I knew it would be a challenge. And unfortunately, Pitt has had our number these past few years, but I knew it was going to be a challenge. I knew it was going to be on the road, the rain, raining and cold weather. But, I'm proud of the guys for getting the win. It wasn't going to be easy, but they got it done. I'm really impressed with Jeff Sims and how he did no interceptions. And that's a big thing that we've talked about with Jeff. He had 102 yards, 1 touchdown. He completed 11 out of 26 passes, and I was really impressed with him. Another player that stuck out to me was Hassan Hall. I mean, he had 157 yards. Okay, 157 on 20 carries, averaging 7.8 yards a carry. Now that is impressive. That is very impressive. I'm happy for him. Sad about Dante, not being able to get as many reps, but it's good to see other guys stepping in, and just going off. It was really impressive to see that. And, defensively, AC Lee coming in there with 8 tackles and 6 assists and a sack. I mean, he's been dominant all year. You've heard his name a lot. Charlie Thomas, 6 tackles, 1 assist. Those are guys that have really stepped up defensively, and it's been really good to see that. Kicking, look at the kicking. Gavin Stewart, 4 for 4 on field goals, 100%, with his longest for 40, scoring 14 points. I mean, he scored most of our points till the very end. So I was really happy with him because it's been, kicking's been a little iffy this year, but it was really good to see that from him. David Shanahan with, 6 punts for 273 yards, averaging 45 yards a punt, which is really impressive. But, we said it wouldn't be easy, but we got the job done. The guys came in there with a mission. They accomplished it. Brent Key got his first win as interim head coach. It was really nice to see that, a nice bounce back. And let's see what we can do this weekend against Duke.
Yeah, so I have to agree that, for me, I was impressed with Jeff Sims, not throwing an interception, which I hope that will become more the norm than it is a impressive stat for him. But I do just want to let people know, because, Patience and I have talked a lot about interception throwing. Jeff Sims has not thrown an interception since the Western Carolina game back on September 10th. So I just wanted to throw that out there, not saying that to jinx him. In fact, my desk is wooden and I'm knocking on it right now. Okay. But I just wanted to throw that out there because, that is a good stat for him. Hassan Hall, I was very impressed. We had talked about where is Hassan Hall? Where is Dylan McDuffie? We heard so many great things about these two players and we hadn't really seen it yet. And we definitely saw it against Pittsburgh there, and I'll be honest with you, I was nervous for a majority of this game because I kept thinking, okay, we can't win this thing by just kicking field goals. We have to get touchdowns. And then eventually the offense woke up and it seemed like it was fine. The one thing that did concern me, and I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm going to say it, and Patience, I want your opinion on this. I don't know how many games we can win if Jeff Sims is only completing 47% of his passes and throwing for 102 yards. Because while he did have a good game running the ball, he did some good things throwing the ball. It kind of reminded me of, and people are going to jump all over me when I say this, but it kind of reminded me of when Reggie Ball was the quarterback for Georgia Tech. He would have games where he would throw for 4 touchdowns and, 250 yards. And then he'd have other games where it would be like 47 completion percentage, maybe 130 yards and 1 touchdown, 2 picks, but we'd win the game and nobody would think about it. But then when we get in those high pressure situations where the running game was shut down, it would force Reggie to have to throw us to a victory. And that's where things kind of got a little hairy. And I just feel like with Duke this week, they're going to watch that tape on Pittsburgh and they're going to come after that running game hard. And I just wonder if we can get thrown to victory if we need to be. Patience, what are your thoughts on that? Am I just being negative, or do you get what I'm saying?
No, I totally get it. I mentioned that when I was actually watching the game, and I said, not to be a Debbie Downer on Jeff, but how about switching things up? Maybe trying another quarterback, see what he can do, just because we have so many options. And I know Jeff has the most experience in this offense that we run, but I just thought at some point, something's got to give. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but something's got to give. Why not try some of these other talented quarterbacks, see what they can do? I mean, might as well. But I definitely agree with you, and I definitely think that Duke is going to come at him hard, and he better figure it out. And I hope it's not to the point where he has to throw a touchdown for the victory. I hope it's one where we just go in, put our foot on the gas, and just keep going and not let up, because this Duke team is very talented. So it's definitely going to be a challenge for us.
It certainly is. And again, I just want to make sure that I'm crystal clear on what I'm saying. I'm not saying sit Jeff Sims. I mean, he did what he needed to do on the ground. But I'm just saying that I want to see more from him through the air. There was so much talk about the improvement he made. And I feel like you've seen his best throwing in our losses. And that to me is just kind of odd that when we finally win a game, it's not because of throwing the football. It's because we grounded and pounded, which, hey, we'll see what happens. So let's go on to the coach of the game, because that's what a lot of Tech fans are going to be talking about, have been talking about all week long on Twitter. Brent Key. So Patience, I want to go to you first. What were your impressions of the first Brent Key coach football game for Georgia Tech? How did you feel he did?
I mean, anytime you beat Pitt on the road at Pitt is a big deal. Like I said, they've had our number the past few years. So to go in there and to get a win as your first game as interim head coach, I think it's very impressive. Yes, it's just the first game, like we're going to talk about. It's just the first game. He's got 7 left. But I think what he did last weekend was very impressive. I have high praise for him because it was going to be tough, for anybody. And for him to go in there and to coach these guys, to discipline them, to manage the game in the right way and how he needed to, I thought it spoke volumes, and I was very proud of him. And you could just see, even at halftime when he was talking in his interview, you could see him getting choked up. Like, this meant a lot to him, and he loves those guys, you can tell. And I know we said that with Coach Collins too. And I love that from Coach Collins, but to see Coach Key enjoy what he loves to do and to see it paying off made a big difference. Yes, it's only the first game, but I was very impressed.
So for me, Patience, I have to agree. I was impressed with Brent Key. And I want to say that up front, because everything else I'm going to say makes it sound like I don't like the guy. And that's not the case. I just, I always want to be real with what it is I'm saying. So for me, was I impressed with his ability to get the guys focused on such a short week after all that drama, all that unnecessary drama? Yes, it was impressive to me. The thing that I was worried about, though, going into that Pittsburgh game, was if Brent Key wins this game, our fan base is going to get attached. And they're going to say, well, this is our guy, very clearly. This is the guy. We should go ahead and hire him, give him a contract, let him be the guy. And the reason why that concerns me is because I don't think Tech fans are really thinking this through, okay? And again, I've got nothing against Brent Key as a person. I don't know him, all right? I love the fact that we won. But we got to be realistic about this. If you give Brent Key the job at the end of this season, he's probably not bringing back the offensive coordinator. He's probably not bringing back the defensive coordinator. He's going to have his own coaches that come in. And that's a completely different ball game when he's the one picking his assistants and his coordinators. Who's he going to bring in? Is he going to bring in guys that are going to keep whatever momentum got him the job so that he can continue having the job? That's something we got to think about. Okay, if you want to roll the Brent Key train, you got to think about who is he bringing on as passengers and power players for that locomotive, so to speak. So that's something that people need to think about. Now, I tried to find an example of a interim head coach who ended up getting the job and having great success. And Tech fans are going to want to puke when I mention this, but I'm going to mention it anyway. And Patience, I want to get your thoughts on this. Dabo Swinney. A lot of people forget Dabo Swinney was an interim head coach for Clemson. He ended up getting the job after they fired Tommy Bowden. Now, Dabo had 7 games. He had 7 games to audition for that job. He went 4-3 in those games, and that was enough at the time to get him the Clemson job, and we all know what he's done with it since. Brent Key got this job with 8 games left. So far, he's 1-0. My question for the audience, my question for patience, if he goes and let's say splits the difference, he goes 4-4 on the rest of this season, is that enough for us to not go outside of our own program here and just hire Brent Key? That's my question. And I want people to comment below in our YouTube video here what they think of that, because this is a real example of it happening with another school, and obviously we've seen this success. So is 4-4 going to be the record that's good enough for us to ignore any other potential candidates? Patience, what do you think?
I don't think so. I love Coach Key. I'm a big fan of his. I've always been a big fan of his, but honestly, I just don't see it happening, because you've seen the articles on Twitter, you've seen it everywhere that, we're trying to find an AD and then he's going to do the job of finding the head coach. So, I think even Brent Key knew coming into this that it was only going to be temporary. But yeah, is he going to try to work for that position? Yeah, sure. Why not? This is his time to shine, his audition. These 7 games left. Yeah, he's going to try to get it, but 4-4, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to happen. I would love for it to happen if we kept rolling, going defeated for the rest of these games. Sure, I would love that, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but you got to look at the reality and the big picture of things and where we're at.
So for me, Patience, I would say that the magic number where I think that you seriously got to consider Brent Key being the future of Georgia Tech would be 6 wins. If he can win 6 out of these 8 games with this team, I say you at the very least got to interview him. You at the very least got to interview him, see what he has to say about the program. But I would say 6 is my number. And everybody's number is going to be different, because for some people, they're already ready to give him the job after Pittsburgh. And I'm not throwing shade at those people. Look, I understand you're excited. I'm excited too. It was nice having that victory and not watching it be a loss or be a close loss. And then we're all sitting here talking about moral victories when nobody likes moral victories. Okay. It was nice getting that win. But for me, I got to see 5 more. If I see 5 more victories and what I think is a winnable ACC Coastal, that's what I got to see. And I'm not saying he's got to win the Coastal Division. I'm just saying I think it's winnable this year, in my opinion, which, by the way, after that win versus Pittsburgh, we're now, I think, 3rd in ACC Coastal play, which is kind of crazy when you really consider just how people were talking about Georgia Tech 2 weeks ago with 8 games left. So, you beat Duke this week. Duke is one of the best teams in the ACC Coastal. You beat them, then you're pretty much, outside of maybe North Carolina, the top team in the ACC Coastal. Just like that. And I can't snap my fingers, otherwise I would, but just like that. Now, I will say, because I mentioned it last week, one of my head coaching candidates will be featured in this game for Duke. He is the defensive line coach. His name is Jess Simpson. I told you last week he won 7 state titles at Buford. He had over a 90% winning percentage as a head coach in the state of Georgia. Again, he coaches defensive line. He's the co-defensive coordinator for Duke. And I just wanted to mention that, not because I'm hoping that Duke has a bunch of success on Saturday. I don't wish them any type of success. But if they do have a lot of success, pay attention to that, okay? Pay attention to that defensive line because, again, that's who I was suggesting. That's my number 1 candidate. So I just wanted to make a mention of that, since you'll be able to see him live and in person. Speaking of Duke, as I mentioned before, Duke's having a pretty good year as they're coming into this game with a record of, I believe it is 3-1, if I'm not mistaken. I was going to double check that. 4-1 actually for Duke, 4-1. And if, in case you're wondering, the teams they have beaten, let me just run you through the schedule here. They opened up the season September 2nd with a 30-0 victory over Temple. Then they went and they beat Northwestern 31-23. They beat North Carolina A&T 49-20, which a lot of people are saying, hey, that's not that impressive as North Carolina A&T, but anyway. And then Duke ended up losing their only game of the year to Kansas, who, in case you haven't caught up with Kansas, they're pretty good this year. College Game Day is actually going to be there this weekend in Kansas. And then they ended up beating Tony Elliott's Virginia Cavaliers 38-17 last week. So that was a situation for Duke. And of course, now they've got Georgia Tech. So one of the better teams in the ACC Coastal. Patience, how do you see the Duke Blue Devils as far as what they bring to the table?
Man, compared to the last few years, I think they've got it this year. I mean, you just see when you say 4-1, it's like, Duke, really? Like, because of past years you've seen, and I'm not throwing shade to Coach Cutcliffe because he's a legend. But when you see them now, it's like, where did this team come from? Because Duke has not had this much, success the past few years. Yet here they are. They're making a name for themselves. They're showing people what they can do. I think Mike Elko really has them. And I was just talking about this the other day. I think he really has them in a good spot right now. And I think it's only just continue to get better and better, which hopefully not this Saturday. Hopefully we don't, they don't do too good on Saturday, but I really think it's impressive to see where they were at to where they are now. And now this is his, first season. Look where they're at. I think it speaks volumes for anybody in their first year.
For sure. And Mike Elko is the new coach for Duke, as Patience just told you there. And, it's crazy to think, just how successful he's been in that first year, as Patience just said, and I think a lot of that has to do with Coach Cutcliffe coming into Duke when he did, because when he went to Duke, and I know this isn't a Duke Blue Devils football show, but this is important to mention, when Cutcliffe went to Duke, there was not really much there for their football program. It was kind of in shambles, and he slowly built that thing into what I would say is an ACC contender. Because Duke has actually been to more ACC championship games than Miami has been to. I'm just throwing that out there because I remember when Miami and Virginia Tech were supposed to be the teams to bring ACC to prominence, and like neither one of them have really made that many ACC championship games since they joined them in Boston College. But anyway, looking at some of the stats for Duke, I want to go over some of the stats here for them. Their quarterback, Riley Leonard, number one, he has been completing 72% of his passes. He's got 7 touchdowns on the year and 2 interceptions. Running the ball, they've got Jalen Coleman, who has 307 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. And they also have Jordan Waters, who has run the ball for 248 yards and 4 touchdowns. Riley Leonard, their quarterback, has also added 4 touchdowns on the ground as well. So they're a very dynamic team. And like I said, that is going to be something for Brent Key in the defense, and Andrew Thacker in that defense. Look, we have to give Andrew Thacker some credit too, because everybody was questioning him and his decision making, and he looked pretty good against Pittsburgh last week. His boys out there on the defensive side of the ball looked like the quickest unit on the field, and that was something that Brent Key even mentioned in his press conference. But when you hear those numbers, Patience, what do you think is going to be the biggest issue for Georgia Tech? Do you think it's the running game of Duke, or do you think that the passing game is what's going to give us issues?
I'm honestly going to go with both. We've had problems with the run game. We've had problems with the passing game. I mean, you saw even the quarterback last week, Slovis. I mean, he still had over 300 yards on us, so I think it's going to be a mixture of both. I think, but mostly the run game, because you look at those numbers and multiple guys have over 100 yards, over 200 yards. I mean, when you look at that, it's like, that's the first thing that I think the defense needs to focus on, is that run game, stopping the run game and not letting them get, and not putting yourself in an uncomfortable position where they're just running all over you and it's not even close. So I really think in this game, it's going to be the run game for sure, but also watch for passing, because Riley Leonard is a talented quarterback, very dynamic, as you mentioned. So, I would go with the run game for sure.
Now, Patience, I do have the stats for Georgia Tech so far in the season. Do you want me to go over them real quick? Okay. All right. Awesome. I'm getting the thumbs up from Patience. So here's
yes, sorry.
Here's
yes,
the
stats. Over it.
Here's the stats for Georgia Tech so far in the year. I'm going to give you passing, rushing, and receiving. Okay. And I might even throw in some defense here. Just give me a second. For passing, Jeff Sims on the year, he's completing 56% of his passes. He's got 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. We've talked a lot about that. He's thrown the ball for 841 yards so far this year. So yardage wise, pretty good. Touchdown and interception wise, obviously we'd like to see some more touchdowns, but it's one of those things where, you know, it's weird because Georgia Tech will throw the ball down the field all game long. Okay. But then when they get inside the 20, it's like they forget all their passing plays and just run after run after run. So he probably could have had 6 or 7 touchdowns this year, but they're just running the ball inside when they get inside the 20. So he might have a year where he's got like, you know, 3,000 yards passing and 8 touchdowns. I don't know. Okay. I don't know at this point, but I'm just saying, I'm sure he's probably saying, hey, can we throw the ball a little bit? Like I am trying to go to the NFL at some point, and 3-2 is not going to get me there. So I don't know, but rushing the ball, Jeff Sims has got 192 yards rushing. He obviously ran for a lot more last week than he has pretty much all season, which was kind of refreshing to see, I must say. 1 touchdown on the year for Jeff Sims running the ball. Hassan Hall has moved into first place rushing yards wise for Georgia Tech. He's got 44 carries, 260 yards. He's averaging 6 yards a carry. He does not have any touchdowns yet running the ball, but obviously lots of yardage. Dante Smith, he's got 33 carries for 191 yards and 3 touchdowns. I hope we see more of him. I don't really know why we didn't see more of him. I have a feeling I know why. And I'm going to say this, and it's going to get me a lot of heat for saying this. I already know this, but when Jeff Collins was fired, Dante Smith came out and said, what does doing this in the middle of the season do to help any of us? That was his tweet. And I'm not saying that the coaching staff is that petty, but it wouldn't surprise me either if they said, oh, you know, who does it help? Well, you can sit on the bench and see who it helps, which is wrong if that's what happened. That's wrong if that's what happened. But I've seen crazier things happen too. I mean, literally, Patience and I were discussing the firing of Stansbury and Collins, and we were saying, hey, they kind of did that a messed up way. Minutes after our show was done, AJC releases an article that puts out all the dirty laundry on that situation. I'm gonna move on, but I'm just saying, like, it wouldn't surprise me if that was the reason why we didn't see Dante that much, was because he spoke out. But anyway,
I would agree 100%, by the way. I know you didn't ask for my thoughts, but I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
like I said, I know I'm
I'm
gonna
with
get
you
you
on
for
that.
that, but that was something I saw, and then you didn't see him, and it's like, why would you not put your leading rusher out there? I don't know, but anyway, taking a look here, receiving wise, Nate McCullum, 182 yards receiving. He leads the team. 158 from Malachi Carter. EJ Jenkins has got 142 yards on the year and 2 touchdowns. Obviously a huge red zone target. They just got to dial that up a little more, I think, and they got to calibrate that a little bit, because it seems like when Jeff Sims is throwing to the 6'7" EJ Jenkins in the end zone, it's always just a little bit off. So if they can get that worked out, I think that would be something pretty crazy over these next few games. We do want to go into our Inside Bobby Dodd. Patience has got a lot for you today, so I'm going to spotlight Patience. Patience, we are excited to hear what you have to say. So take us inside Bobby Dodd. What do fans need to know to enjoy their experience this Saturday?
Well, first, I'm going to go over the game day time. I'm asked if I could go over this because Georgia Tech always posts it a few days before. So for this Saturday, the first thing I want to mention is there's actually a giveaway. Unfortunately, it's only for students though, but it's a gold t-shirt. So if you're a student, you might want to go check that out. I wish I was a student, but anyways, starting out early, 8:30 a.m., there is a rec parade because this is a homecoming, so there's a rec parade, which is located on Fowler Street. And I've mentioned this one before, the Rec Fest, it starts at 1 o'clock. And if you're interested in tailgating, it's the 4-4 tailgate. It opens also at 1 o'clock. So you can do a little bit of tailgating, a little bit of the Rec Fest, which the Rec Fest, I will add, is pretty incredible. There is a lot with it. There's music, inflatables, space painting, food vendors, and a lot more. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. That's at 1 o'clock. 2 o'clock, Yellow Jacket Alley, which is my absolute favorite. I love going to Yellow Jacket Alley, and I plan to go this weekend, which I'm very excited about. That's on Britton Drive. Then the Callaway Plaza pregame show. I kind of went over this just a little bit throughout the year when we've done these episodes, but the Callaway Plaza pregame show is at 2:15. And then the gates open at 2:30. So if you want to get there early, get in your seat, because I'm hearing that this game is actually, there's not a lot of tickets, which I wasn't surprised to see, but I was encouraged to see that, because I heard a lot of people were like, oh, I want to go get tickets, and it only said limited in this section or whatever. So that was I was very happy to hear that, because the guys need the support, especially against Duke. And going to tickets, pricing, if you want to go get a ticket, anywhere from $27 to $432. And when I say that, I'm talking to do with the club section. So obviously that's going to be a little bit more, but you can't, there's not a bad seat in the house. I mean, I'm in section 213. I love it. I recommend it to anybody that wants to come to a game. The price is not even that much. And then you have the band performance at Callaway Plaza on the steps at 3:00. 100% recommend that. If you've never been to a game at Bobby Dodd and you've never seen the band on the steps, you've got to check that out, because it is worth coming for. And then you have the team warm up at 3:10. And then again, another band pregame show on the field at 3:45. Then of course, toe meets leather, which is the best part of our Saturdays, when toe meets leather. But as far as merchandise goes, I know we talked a little bit about that too. I want to recommend again, I went to our last game, Western Carolina. It was raining, of course, so I was like, I don't have a poncho or jacket. Didn't prepare well, so I don't recommend that. But there's merchandise stand in front of Callaway Plaza that has gear, and this year they added in inside stadium. They have gear, a little stand located on the west side of Bobby Dodd Stadium. I still have not checked it out, but I want to, because I hear it's pretty incredible. And then food wise, I have not mentioned this, but I thought it might be a good idea, depending on what section you're sitting in, if you've never been, some food ideas. So I know in the East 100 concourse, there's this place called Wreck Express, which I have never seen it before, but I think it would be interesting to try. Chick-fil-A, Papa John's, those are just a few in that section. And then you have the East 200 concourse, which is a Tech Classic, which is your basic hot dog, popcorn, things like that. It's just a classic restaurant. And also, let me get my thing. Sorry. Parking. It's always important. I can't stress it enough. I don't care who we're playing. I always stress it is so good to get a parking pass beforehand, because on game day, especially if you're running late or something, Atlanta traffic, it is crazy. So definitely recommend going online and getting a parking pass. There's tons of parking everywhere. We have a parking pass, which has saved us a lot this year. So I definitely recommend that for sure. Some more concessions. The West 100 concourse has Papa John's, Chick-fil-A, the Tech Grill. And then the West 200 has Papa John's. I mean, these restaurants are pretty popular, but this is just a little bit, if you've never been, where to find food. The West 200 concourse has Papa John's, the Wreck Express, the Tech Classics, of course, which is your basic restaurant with hot dogs and all that stuff. But I'm excited about this year. I think, tailgate. I did mention the 4-4 tailgate, but there's also the varsity. You can tailgate at the varsity. That's another thing. I've had a lot of friends do that. And there's, I don't think it's an issue wherever you park to tailgate. I mean, all the lots that I've been to a lot of my Georgia Tech, and they've always allowed us to tailgate. So I definitely recommend tailgating for sure. Varsity is the best place in my opinion, because you have a lot of room. But I hear it's a little pricey for parking and all that stuff. So it just depends on what you want to pay, and all that. But there's always, if you have any questions about anything, you can always go to ramblinrec.com. That's where I go to see a lot of information. Or you can call the ticket office for ticket prices or parking or whatever. They have a number on the ramblinrec.com site. And I can post it on the YouTube, or I can say it now, which I don't know if a lot of people would. I don't know if that would be a good spot or not to tell the time, but I'm sorry, to tell the number.
Yeah, go ahead.
To go ahead. Okay. So the ticket number, because I did a little bit of this research. Like I said, the site is ramblinrec.com. And then the number is actually 404-894-5447. So again, that's 404-894-5447. So you can call that number for if you have any ticket questions, the best section, parking, all that stuff, parking, whatever you need, you can definitely call that number, because I've done that plenty of times. And I've been going to games my whole life, and I still call them for information or whatever, especially if you're new. Clear bag policy, always bring a clear bag, because if you don't, then you might be in a little trouble. I have brought small like fanny packs in and stuff, and they've allowed that. but just to be on the safe side, it's always a good idea to bring a clear bag. And you can bring a clear water bottle as long as it doesn't have water in it. If I'm not mistaken, I think you can't have water in it, which I've gotten away with it a few times, but I don't know if they've checked it good enough. I hate saying that, but I have gotten away with it a little bit, having water already in my water bottle. But anyways, that's just a few things that I've added in a little more for the segment because there's a lot more than what I even realize. And like I said, I go to games a lot and there's a lot more. So I'm looking forward to this Saturday. That's just a little bit kind of hope I didn't go too fast. Hope that was good enough. Those are just a few ideas to give you for if you're new, if this is your first game of the year. So yeah.
Great job, Patience. Hey, thank you so much for that segment too, because with this week especially, there's a lot of people who are saying they're coming back out to a Georgia Tech football game for the first time in a long time. And nothing's going to frustrate you more than going in thinking it's one way just to find out that it's completely different. Because for some folks, I'd imagine they haven't been to a Tech game since probably 2017 for some of these folks that I'm seeing comments saying they're going to show up now. So better late than never. But hopefully you're able to get some good out of what Patience just gave you there. She kind of gave you a ton. So I would encourage you to make sure that you're, go back and rewatch that a few times if you need to get everything, because there's a lot of good information that Patience just gave you. And I will say, it's not always easy to find that information either. I know Patience and I were searching hard to try to find certain things on that website. So, thank you, Patience, for all the time and effort you put into that. And thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience in finding all that.
Anytime.
So, I have to throw that in there. Anyway, so I do want to just hit on something that Patience did say in there. Atlanta traffic, we're all familiar with it. I'm familiar with it from when I used to live in the area. So here's something you should remember, okay? Because if my memory serves me correct, and that's saying something, but if my memory serves me correct, Georgia State, Georgia Tech, their two football fields are not necessarily that far away from each other. So I just want to make a mention of this. Georgia State's got a home game at 2:00. Georgia Tech's got a home game at 4:00. Georgia State is playing Georgia Southern. So there could be quite the traffic jam if you wait too long. So Patience, you tell me, because you live in the area, right? Okay, so is Georgia State?
Yeah, I do. Sorry.
So is Georgia State Stadium near Bobby Dodd pretty much, or no?
It's pretty much like 10 to 12 minute drive, if that. I mean, they're like side by side. It's like we go off the Georgia State exit to go to Bobby Dodd, and it's like right there, like literally. So yeah, Definitely prepare ahead of time. That's why I said buy a parking pass.
So yeah, because I remember when I used to live in Georgia, I remember seeing the Atlanta Braves stadium, and I know that's the new Georgia State football stadium. And I didn't recall it being that far away from Bobby Dodd. So, but as a Dodgers fan, I didn't go to any Braves games. But anyway, I know Patience is a big Braves fan, so I had to stick that one in there. So best team in baseball, LA Dodgers. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so for Georgia, for Georgia Tech, I do want to make a mention of this. Georgia Tech's got a winning streak going against Duke right now. They've beaten them twice in the last 2 years. Obviously, last year was a pretty exciting game, 31-27. You can find that game up on YouTube, actually, a shortened version of it. And the year prior, of course, they came to Atlanta, and Jahmyr Gibbs had himself a game as they beat the Duke Blue Devils 56-33. So a 2-game winning streak, a big game at Bobby Dodd, 4:00 in the afternoon. Now, I did look this up on ESPN, and it's saying it's going to be on ESPN3, which could mean a lot of different things. But I would encourage you, don't watch it on TV if you don't have to. Go to the game, get there, go support the team. I know they certainly would love to see more Georgia Tech fans in the stands than Duke fans. And hey, who knows? The way people are talking on Facebook and Twitter, it sounds like it might be a sellout. Now, I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but there's a lot of people talking a big game. So hopefully those people talking a big game show up and support these kids, because I know I would. But I live in Messina, New York, and that's 1,800 miles away from Bobby Dodd Stadium. So I did the math. That's not something I can do. This show has not generated enough sponsors for me to have a private jet. So when that does happen, though, I'll be at every game. But anyway, we got 3 minutes left here before the end of our episode. So I just want to throw out a thank you to everybody who has been watching, everyone who's been liking and commenting. We appreciate it. We look at the comments. And one thing I want to stress to you is that if you have a question or a topic, maybe you're saying, why didn't you guys talk about this? Comment below. We look at those comments and we will bring it up on our planning session, and we will make sure to try to answer that question to the best of our abilities during next week's show. So I just wanted to throw that out there again, though. Thank you for everyone that has been watching and participating in our program. And I want to thank Patience too. A lot of people don't know this about Patience, but last year she just graduated high school. And then I came to her and I said, hey, you've been doing great work on the Swarm. How about we do a podcast together? And she's like, well, I've never done that before, but sure, why not? And I think she's done a great job through these first few weeks. And in my opinion, you go back and you watch the first episode and you watch this one here that we're recording now, you can see the growth. So I just want to congratulate Patience on that. And Patience, you do a write-up for Georgia Tech football. Tell us a little bit about where we can find that. We got 2 minutes here left in the program. So where can people find your writings about Georgia Tech football? Because it's pretty awesome.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for that. I appreciate the encouragement. It's been an absolute honor getting to do this, getting to talk about what I love, Georgia Tech football, especially after a win. But I do appreciate that. And you're doing a tremendous job as well. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. But as far as my writing goes, I have been writing this whole season. I usually do recaps of after the games, win or lose. Even though it's hard after a loss, you want to kick yourself in the foot and want to get mad and stuff. But I try to always, or that's just me, that's just me. I try to always write up recaps. I actually write for the Everyday Fan right now, and that's theeverydayfan.com. I started out there. I've been writing a little bit all over, but right now I've just been focusing on the Everyday Fan. I'm trying to get out there more. I'm trying to work my way up there. I know I'm still new to this, with podcasts and writing and all that. And I know I'm not a big name, but I am. It is my goal and passion to always write about Georgia Tech football and Georgia Tech sports in general. But right now, this season, football. So, but with what I'm writing with, I can do any of the sports. So you will see me a lot with football, basketball, baseball, softball, all the sports, everything Georgia Tech. But yeah, so it's the Everyday Fan I've been writing for, and I've really enjoyed it. I feel like I've grown a lot, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback from different people on Twitter, because that's where I'm mainly on. A lot of good feedback from everybody saying great write-up and stuff, and that encourages me. And I just want to continue to do the best I can and bring good things to Georgia Tech football and everything about it, because that's my goal and that's my passion, and that's where I'm at. So yeah.
All right. Well, Patience, congratulations on that, folks. Make sure to support Patience. And I know I don't post on Twitter a lot, but feel free to follow me on there. It's just Real Winfrey. I'm going to try to get better at posting on Twitter. I'm not very good at it right now, but follow me and maybe that'll be the encouragement. Who knows? But hey, for the Bold and Gold podcast, thank you so much. I'm Elijah Winfrey. She's Patience Beach. We'll talk with you next week, hopefully after another Georgia Tech victory.